So do you do any testing? Like what kind of tests do you do, or in your ideal world, what are mom's
Yeah.
like, whatever you think, Dr. Nathan.
Well, there's an issue with the question because it's not my job to tell you what to do or not to do. It's my job to educate you around the risks, benefits, and alternatives to any test, screen, intervention, or otherwise. And then when you make that decision, I can say, hey, listen, I don't do that. I don't do IV antibiotics in the home, frankly. So
Mhm.
if we're going to do the GBS swab, here are going to be the options if it comes back positive. We can try an oral penicillin if you're allergic to that. It's very, very hard for us to do oral vancomycin. They do have oral vancomycin, but it's like, you know, frankly, it's like the question as to what do I do or not do is not relevant. What do my clients ultimately decide? Most of my clients ultimately decide to do none of the things. The only one that's usually like 50-50 is the ROGAM injection, which is to prevent alloimmunization if you're
50-50?
probably about
I
that. Yeah.
how how is 50%, like, I in my brain, I didn't have to
Yeah.
deal with that decision in my pregnancies, but, like, even I didn't think that was optional. Like, from a health standpoint, how are the women who are not getting it, how are they okay? Like, educate
Yeah.
me, please.
Yeah, I mean, the risk of alloimmunization is something like 15%. If I recall, I'd have to go and look up the statistics, but I have had women. I mean, you have to consider where I'm located. Where are you located? Nebraska, did you say?
Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin. Okay. So somewhere up there where nobody knows the different state boundaries. Gotcha. Kentucky's the same way. But people are like, where's Kentucky? And I'm like, it's in the South. Not really, though. It's kind of in the
Yeah.
Midwest. Right. So in Wisconsin, as with many of the Great Lakes states, including Kentucky and a lot of the sort of northern South, we have huge Amish populations. They may have
Mhm.
had babies and they may have Rh negative blood. I've had a woman give birth to her eighth baby and never get ROGAM, and she still has babies that she didn't allo immunize, meaning she didn't develop antibodies against the Rh factor, and many of her babies were Rh positive. So the point here is that there is a risk. Are you willing to take that 15% risk or not? And if not, okay, like that's not on me. That's on you, right? If it was my wife and I don't know. It'd be hard pressed, but we weren't in that position. You know, my wife and I are both, well, at least my wife, we both are positive. But as long as my wife is positive, or any woman is positive, we don't have to worry about it. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I can't force you to do anything. I can say, here's what I recommend. Here's why I recommend it. Here's the consequences of not doing that thing. And here's the benefits of doing it. One big thing that has emerged during the COVID years is that RH is made from whole blood. This ROGAM is made from whole blood. So in theory, if there's something in the blood of contaminated people who got the vaccine, some people are worried, and I haven't been able to really sort this out yet for them. They're worried about spike protein or something else being
Mhm.
transmitted into this contaminated, through this contaminated blood. So, Mormons, or is it Mormons? I think Mormons are or Fifth, Seventh Day Adventists, one of the two Christian groups that are predominant out in sort of the Western and mountain states, they will refuse ROGAM because it's made from whole blood. They won't get blood transfusions. It's not a part of their theology. So this is how the conversation has to go.
Mhm.
It's not just you do it or you don't do it. It's let's have a big conversation around what this might mean. And if your baby is exposed to antibodies through alloimmunization because you didn't get ROGAM in your first, your last pregnancy, that baby can become very sick and die in the uterus. So as long as you're willing to appreciate that there is a percentage of babies that will happen to, it's not my job to tell you, what to do. It's my job to really counsel you and then support you in your decision.
Oh my gosh, I can easily see how I mean, I don't think I would be one of those brave women. Like, I can easily see where we're so how do I wanna say this? I am less okay. I think we as a society are a lot less comfortable with babies dying than maybe they were in the 1800s type of thing. Like, right? Like, it's just like, okay, no, if there's a 5% chance, all of a sudden I'm like, I can't have a 5% chance of my baby dying. And like, I think infant mortality was more normal, like you had a kid who was on the outside and then like a year and a half, they got that thing and they died, like it. And so it's like, we have gotten very, I don't want to say like, I can see how the hospital has this breeding ground of like, you're terrified of a point, because where's the percentage? Like, okay, so you say 15%, and I'm like, oh, sorry, Dr. Nathan, I don't, I can't, I couldn't do that. But then you're like, all right, 5%. I'm like, I think I'd still do it. Okay, 1%. Okay, well now I'm getting a lot more comfortable, and so it's just like,
So Lauren, let me pose it like this to you. We have a hard time ascertaining risk when it comes to dead babies,
mhm,
right? I'll say what it is. Like we have a hard time saying dead babies. That's a
yeah,
big part of the problem. Like sometimes babies don't survive no matter what we do.
hmm,
Was that a failure of the medical sciences? Was that a bad doctor? Was that a bad midwife? Oftentimes, no, the baby just didn't make it through labor. And
hmm,
that is not something we're okay with, which is why we're willing to force your legs open and have somebody hold you down and force our hand inside of you to quote, check on the cervix or the baby or whatever, which doesn't
right,
make any lick of sense outside of very, very rare circumstances. If you were to walk into a casino and you had like 5 grand on you, burning a hole in your pocket, and you walk over to like, I don't know, the blackjack table, not blackjack, craps or something, right? Or roulette, and you put all your money down on one spot. And the likelihood of you winning is 1 in 100. Let's say it's 1 in 100, right? It's 1%. If you were to win all that money, would you say, I'm damn, like, of course I won all that money? No, you would say that was fucking lucky of me.
yeah, yeah,
But we do a different sort of, we have a hard time ascertaining risk when it comes to the lives of babies. And that's in part because we're afraid of mortality altogether. But it's also really important to mention that when a baby dies or when a mom dies, there is very, very, very little support that comes in the way of any of these agencies, hospital administrators, social services in order to help that father care for that baby now without their mother, or for that couple to seek out some support over, this bad thing that happened, their baby dying. So we don't do a great job of supporting you. So of course we're afraid, because it's not just afraid of the baby dying and you losing a piece of you, which is probably the hardest thing any woman or partner, can go through. It's also that like, you're going to be alone with these feelings for the rest of your life. And that really sucks. Like we have a lot to work on the other side of this as well.